And so if I've got the stadium and I've got a great relationship with the local community and we've got a good team that competes hard and fans, like it and we're a part of the community, I think we have a fortress.
Welcome back in Morning Kick Around here, getting to know our district open, Eugene, Oregon. The Sporting Cascades, located in Eugene, Oregon, was due to start play in USL League One in 2026. That didn't quite pan out according to plan, but there might be a savior here for the team. Bill Cornog, a local to the area, joined the ownership and is setting the sights for a 2027 launch. Bill Cornog, welcome to Morning Kick Around, sir.
Hey, Robert, how are you? I didn't join the ownership. I am the ownership.
That's good. That's a good clarification, Bill.
Join the club as the owner.
Yeah. Well, I was on LinkedIn this morning, Bill, ahead of this conversation, and I did see that it says hired by Sporting Cascades on your profile, and I thought that was a little funny.
Did it? Okay, yeah.
You hired yourself.
It also didn't say savior, did it?
No, it didn't say that. It could have. It didn't say that. Look, you've got the background there. I see that you're repping for Eugene and Oregon as you talk to us. Tell us about the process here.
Actually, I'm in Portland.
Oh, okay.
I just dropped my daughter off. I just dropped my daughter off at the Cherry Bomb. She's playing for the W League team in Portland, the Cherry Bombs this summer. So I just dropped her off. And I'm going to make this call here at Lentz Park, and now I'm driving to Eugene after this.
Okay, all right. So I'm not up on whether that tree is Portland or Eugene, but good to know. Correct geography in Oregon. So again, what made you decide to become the owner of Sporting Cascades? With this moment, being a local guy, but not having originally been involved.
So sometimes the opportunity comes to you, Jason, when you're not looking for it. So it was kind of late January, and I didn't even know what team was going to be launched in Eugene. And as Robert noted, that launch didn't go off as planned. And I got a call from a buddy of mine from 6th grade, who's the head soccer coach at South Eugene High School, Dave Peterson. And Dave Peterson called me and said, "Hey, I want you to talk to Dave and John Gallas." And I asked him why, and he wouldn't explain why. And so I called them, and they, mentioned that they were looking for investors because, the prior investor had changed his mind on the club. So I got to know the Gallas brothers, who, when I asked my son about them, and my son is very well versed in U.S. soccer, and he knew of the Gallas brothers. He knew John's son, who's playing in college. Said, "Hey, this is a legit soccer family. You need to talk to these people." So I got to know them. Through them, I got to know the USL, and then coincidentally, I was at the Eugene Country Club, and I ran into Bev Smith, who runs Kidsports, and they control the local stadium. And she, called me like the next week and said, "Hey, we're trying to find a professional club to." Occupy our stadium, which is built with the intention of having a professional club. And, it kind of all came together. And I called around to people I thought might want to invest with me in the local community, and everybody encouraged me to invest. So after, talking to the Gallas brothers and the USL and, the Bev Smith at Kidsports, it just seemed like a good thing to do. So I consider this part philanthropy and part, trying to build, a great soccer club that can stand on its own feet economically.
That's interesting. Part philanthropy there also. Yeah, because part of soccer is, ingratiating yourselves to the community, representing the community. And that's one of the things that's wonderful about the current state of American soccer is that independent teams, giving the folks of Eugene, Oregon, a team that is their very own to root for themselves. So Sporting Cascades, they had their brand.
And by the way, Robert,
season.
I just going to say, I saw you guys on our prior episode talk about the economics of the USL. So I know it's not a cash flow business. It's not like a laundromat. So I knew I'd have to invest some capital in this thing to get it off the ground.
Yeah, I imagine it's no easy feat and no light lift by any means. But I guess what is kind of your vision? Like, is it much the same as the original one with the same branding and everything like that? How much are you going to change from the original plan from the 2026 launch? And like, kind of what is your kind of take on it?
So it's a bit of a shotgun marriage because, as you noted, there's the starting team under the prior ownership is still there, and I've gotten to know that team, and I like that team. I know you guys view the logo as kind of meh. I saw that review, and so you didn't pan it, but you also don't view it as as necessarily the best. But I kind of view it as a template. I view it as something that we can riff on. In Eugene and Oregon are pretty creative places, so stay tuned. And I don't know if we'll fundamentally change it, but we may have iterations of it that are better and maybe you might find more interesting. um and then when I think about what success is, in the best sports experience in Oregon is Oregon football in Autzen Stadium, and I'd like to make sure that in Eugene, Oregon, at least the second best experience is going to be to watch Sporting Cascades in Civic Park. And it's a great stadium. It seats max capacity today, about 4,000. I think we could fill it. And then you got to put a good team on the pitch. And I am already kind of working with Dave Gallas and the team on, coach, sporting director. If you looked at my bio, Jason, you probably saw I'm an investor in another holding company that has some soccer clubs, and I'm working on a partnership with those guys. And my objective is to put a good team on the pitch, put a developmental team on the pitch. So we actually want to have players that can, start at Sporting Cascades, but make their way maybe to higher platforms in Europe or the US. And then we want to have an awesome fan experience. And if we can do all those things, I think this is going to be a winner. And then the other thing, and you guys, I think, had a prior show on this. You might have noticed I worked at KKR. I know Ted Oberwager, who led the investment with the MLS, and I talked to him about what those guys are doing. And, whenever you see that much capital flow into something you're a part of, that's actually not a bad sign. So I actually think that they're investing behind a model that the USL at its best is already executing. So I think if I can execute in Eugene what they plan to do in other markets and what's already being done in the USL, I just think that's a good thing for soccer overall, and it will be a good thing for the Eugene Springfield community.
Well, Bill, if you've watched our show, that our one of our mantras is dot the map. We want as many clubs as possible. Now, obviously, there's a question there of whether they're going to be well run and well supported and have people who really care about the game. And you've already said that you're viewing your investment in Sporting Cascades as this is not just about making money, or this isn't about making money. This is a philanthropy element to it as well, which I think is necessary, because we've yet to see whether these clubs can, generate any real return on investment in certainly the short term. And we need people that are committed for years or willing to at least eat some losses to make sure the club is established. So those are all things you were really aware of. You mentioned the MLS investment from KKR.
Thanks to your show.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. Did you, when you heard about the KKR, because I don't know the timelines here, when you, or what you knew maybe before the rest of us did that give you any pause about Sporting Cascades and USL when MLS is getting that KKR investment? Obviously, USL has also had backers from private equity enter the picture.
Yeah. The decisions were totally independent, so I had no idea. I'm still a big investor in KKR. I'm a big, a stockholder in KKR, and that is, the source of most of my wealth, and that's going to help support Sporting Cascades. But I really had no idea that Ted was working with the MLS on this deal. When it was announced, I had obviously high curiosity about it because when you read the press clippings, it's a direct competitor to the USL in many ways. But after talking to Ted about it, I still think it's in many ways going to be a direct competitor, right? These guys are going to try to occupy these markets that are not the largest MSAs, but they're going to try to be in the next tier MSA. And, from my perspective, if I do a good job in Eugene, right? If I've got a great stadium and Civic Park is a great stadium, and I'm going to gift part of the club to Kidsports. So the city of Eugene and Kidsports is going to be a part owner with me in this. And so if I've got the stadium and I've got a great relationship with the local community and we've got a good team that competes hard and fans, like it and we're a part of the community, I think we have a fortress and we got a market that we control and we're not going to there won't be a competitor that can step in. So you can try to get me to join your group, but you can't take my market. And I think the USL has many markets that look like that. And I think at this point there's going to be a bit of a horse race, right? Who can occupy markets sooner? At that point it comes down to execution. And if you're in a market and you're executing, I think you're going to be in great shape. If you're in a market and you're not executing, then you get what you deserve. And you know, hopefully, what I will bring, what we will bring to Sporting Cascades is we're going to bring capital. We're going to bring a lot of enthusiasm for soccer, and then I think we're going to bring execution. So we're going to be very focused on this. And one of the other things I discussed with Ted Oberwager at KKR is they're going to have a corporation, really a company that's going to run this holding company. So when you think about these clubs in these cities, they're going to be owned. They're going to be like company owned stores. And I view Sporting Cascades as like a franchisee owned store. So I'm a franchisee of the USL. And if you look at restaurant operations, the best run restaurant operations are typically the franchisee, not the company owned store, because the franchisee is local, the franchisee knows the community, and the franchisee is an owner operator. It's not just somebody working for a corporation. So I think the owner operator model is a pretty powerful model. It works in a lot of industries where there's a franchise model, and I think that can work well for the USL. I've been very impressed with the other owners I've met at the USL, and so I think again these people are formidable competitors.
Can I ask you another question? So you are also entering this at a very interesting time, and I imagine this is, part of the story for the investment in USL, and it's the idea of creating a pyramid and doing promotion and relegation between the USL leagues. Now, being a soccer journalist for the last 2 decades, you can't get away from that question of whether or not pro rel should be in American soccer or whether it would work here. What are your thoughts on that as now a club owner, where your situation means you could be moving up, and then in the future, if
So
you go up a level, you could go back down?
promotion relegation is great if you're where I am. It's not great if you're in the divisions above where I am, right? So through Blue Crow Sports Group, we invested in Leganes when Leganes was a second division team. We got it promoted to the first division. That was a great, accomplishment. And then, as you know, the most likely team to be relegated is the team that was just promoted. We got relegated. Wasn't the greatest thing. So, starting where we are at the bottom of the pyramid, I feel great about it. And just now following European soccer as much as I have, look, I think it makes every game exciting. Now, it doesn't make for the best franchise value. So if you look at the value of American sports teams, because there's no promotion relegation in the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball. I mean, these are monopolies in these cities, and monopolies trade at pretty good multiples. So if your team could conceivably lose that monopoly, it's not as sturdy an asset. It doesn't trade it as high of a value. But I think it's good for the game. And starting in USL League One, I feel very good about my starting position.
Yeah. I imagine the folks there in Eugene are excited that the project is back underway. There's a new set to play date and the new ownership. Yourself,
Well, me
singularly
and
you,
in
not a
Kid
group,
Sports.
has a plan in action.
Yeah.
You have ties.
Him and Kid Sports, yes.
Him Kid Sports, and so you have local ties. Obviously, you're a Eugene guy. You've been involved in soccer on a multiple levels. But if we could, I could ask a KK R hat question, and I enjoyed hearing you talk about kind of like there's kind of an arms race sort of thing going on with soccer and creating soccer teams and building stadiums. That's an incredible amount of investment, front end investment. And obviously, private equity firms like, they're about, making profit. So where does that huge amount of front end investment, how does that
So it doesn't
equal profit at
necessarily
the end?
mean profit, right? I mean, when money flows into something, there's going to be some winners and there's going to be losers. And I think what you have to look at, Robert, is the asset class gaining value or is the asset class losing value? And I think when you've got investors like KKR putting money into this, I think that's telling you that the asset class is going to, gain in value. Now, within that, some clubs are going to win and other clubs are not going to win. So that's where you get back to what Jason mentioned, which is you got to invest and you got to execute and you got to compete, and have a good, you got to have a great experience with the community. If you do those things, I think all that capital moving into the category means that people that have well-run clubs, those clubs are going to gain in value. I mean, my investment in Blue Cross Sports Group, none of those clubs have necessarily been cash flow, businesses, but they've increased in asset value. And you guys know this because you guys are expert at this. Just look at the franchise values of all these clubs. People have made money. They haven't made it through dividends. They haven't made it through cash flow. They've made it through appreciation in the franchise. So, I think that with that capital flowing in, I think with soccer increasing in popularity in the US, I think this is going to be, a positive for people that have well-run franchises.
Mm, Thank you for that answer. That's very informative and educates us here as we, document this. You said, I think, did you say a horse race? And the USL and MLS Next Pro are definitely in a battle for the mid-size cities and the cities that have shown a keen interest in supporting a local soccer team. And really appreciating your local ties and your soccer background. What has been the local reaction to you? Have you gotten much feedback? Have you heard from community members about since the resurgence?
Yes, probably. I think the announcement was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So yeah, positive really announcement. I've had a bunch of friends I've known for years because my family moved to Eugene in 1976. So I've had a bunch of people reach out to me. We haven't had launch parties. We haven't actually. I'm going down to Eugene today for some press interviews. We haven't really had many press interviews yet. I mean, to be honest, I've been in the engine room working on ticketing, sponsorships, the sporting side of the business, the back office, trying to recruit. So, I'm focused right now on making sure we have the people that we need, and we kind of got the processes and kind of the operations piece of this ready to hum. And I think with more announcements about players we're going to bring in, coaching staff, and kind of other things we're going to do, I suspect that will spark a lot of enthusiasm. Or at least I hope it does.
I imagine so. If you've checked in on us, Bill, and you've obviously seen our review of the Sporting Cascades
Yeah,
badge, and we've talked to Dave Gallas several times on the show, which I'm sure you've seen. We're also going to be, critiquing your stadium situation from
yeah,
afar. From afar, the more visuals we have, the better informed
yeah.
we'll be. But of course, we wish you the best of luck. Look again. Dot the map is our mantra because we want American soccer to grow, and it's going to take local clubs that connect to those communities, especially in places like Eugene, Oregon, for us to reach our potential as a soccer nation. And that's what I care about. I want us to be fully built out as a soccer country. So welcome
Well,
aboard.
thank you. Appreciate what you guys do. Thanks for hosting me.